Right, now that this has dried off beautifully, it's time to do the foreground. The green is going to be my ultramarine blue. Actually, I want to try, yes, a cooler blue, because this is quite wintry, low light and shaded. So I'm actually going to use a bit of the Antwerp with Indian yellow, and let's see how we go. Yes, I like that color. So just keeping the wash moving, bringing it all the way over here. So the bead must stay wet. This is why I'm using a reasonably big brush. And then picking it up each time, pulling it over. Even easier if you're working on the tilt. Just adding a little bit more of the yellow in now. Okay. And now I want to add in some, they're probably hawthorn bushes and things over here. They're wintry, so they're quite grey. And I'm going to use a little bit of brown madder with the ultramarine blue, just to get a sort of brownish colour. Not too purpley. That would want a little bit of let's see. Let's go with that to begin with. Too much moisture on the brush. And I'm picking up that sort of grey colour. And if I can leave some little gaps in between where the light shines through, and then not too wet where it meets the base. See, I'm taking the moisture off the brush. Okay, and then I can use a rigger to bring out some twigginess. Rather than lumpiness. Okay, and then let's darken that towards the base. And it's just blending in slightly there, which is pleasant. Okay, so that's one. Moving on to the next one. So just basically getting paint in, and then let's refine with the rigger. Again, if we can just leave some little gaps. Now what we can do as well is sprinkle a bit of salt, but we'd have to be ever so careful that we don't sprinkle it into the ground below. Okay, let's go nice and dark here. So I'm just using my green colours, the ultramarine and Indian yellow, with a bit of brown madder here and there. I'm going to try a bit of salt there, but I'm going to have to be ever so careful. Coming in round the side so I don't even go near that grass. Okay, I think I've managed not to get any on the grass. Before I go any further, I'd like to actually bring some shadow over the grass being cast by the trees on the left. So before it gets too dry, I'm throwing some shadows over, and this is really mostly Antwerp. I can add a little bit of the brown madder into that to grey it down a bit. And the reason I'm doing it at this stage is I don't want it hard edged, but I've got to be very careful as well that I don't bring in watermarks. So the base colour still wants to be a little bit damp. And what I can do as well is just flick in a little bit here and there to show that this is grass. So just holding the brush on its side and dragging it up. There we go. Now we can come back to our shrubbery. In fact, let's try this sideways too. Break that up a bit. That's nice. Having this little broken wash. It's nice and loose. So just dabbing it on with the side of this large brush. I'm liking that effect. And again, coming back in with the rigger as loosely as possible. That one wants some salt because we've got a bit of a solid lump there. Carefully. Okay. And then continuing with a bit of dry brush. Yeah, that's nice and loose. Okay, and we need a couple more up there. Now, I think we want to get a little bit more interesting on the colour. In terms of adding in a little bit of pure brown madder. We don't want any thick lines here, so any little branches must be added in with the rigger. And if you can just let your rigger dance on the paper, but keeping a lighter touch, because not only for the looseness, but also the harder you press down, the thicker your line will be. Got a bit of a white streak there which wants to be filled in, so let's just have a bit of something there. Okay, now we want to come to this main tree here. So it's quite a dark, forbidding shape. I'm going to put a little tree in front, which is lighter, and then I don't want this tree to be so solid. Righty, so mixing up a sort of dark brown. I think I need more brown madder. And I'm wanting to keep it quite airy rather than a big big silhouette. So again, dry brushing. It's easier to add than to subtract. So this is where we're coming up here over the area that I'd kept light for this reason. And then we just build it up. We had masked out some branches. Can go a little bit darker on the left. But just not wanting to make this too forbidding looking. Whoops, that's going a bit high. And then with rigor, you can have some little branches. Okay, and then just to fill it in a little bit more if necessary. But doing it with the dry brush means that you can build it up without suddenly ending up with this horribly solid looking, eye-catching tree on the left. Okay, and I think once it's dry we're going to actually need a bit more shadow underneath. Actually, let's try this now, wet on dry, and I'm coming on with Antwerp with a tiny little bit of brown madder in, letting that melt up into the tree. So that's casting quite a strong shadow. And then again we can do a little bit of tufts. And if necessary, strengthen down here. There we go, that's working nicely. And then this is going to need to be dried off. And then we remove the masking fluid for the boats. There's not much more to do.